Virginia's here, Taryn's here, Mary's here. I see Andrea.
South Africa, yes, but I don't know if there is another place
back,
or he's not here. Okay, Vietnam. Vietnam non c'è. Sicuri, non vorrei.
Okay. It's so long. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Prima di tutto, grazie.
First and foremost, thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone. I would like to thank all of my colleagues who over the 3 days have gone above and beyond. They've really worked hard. We have a path that we are sharing now. This goes well beyond the written document because the presence of everyone together really is what gave the soul to this Solfagnano Charter and the approach we're taking. A very concrete approach based on cooperation between all of our countries. And I thank the governments for their trust and their encouragement. I would like to remind you that the G7 leaders in their meeting back in June included in the final document a specific paragraph on inclusion and disability. So this really is another important chapter in this this history we're writing, a huge step for the world of people with disabilities. And the other day in the square in Assisi, I think we were very close to the people with the associations, and we really saw that watershed moment, the change which is coming about in really making using and building on people and their values. So the exchange here has been very useful. It's helped us strengthen the policies also within our own countries. I'm just going to make a couple of comments, and then I will open the floor to my colleagues for their statements. Maybe you could ask the questions to me, and then maybe on the sidelines you could have questions for my colleagues, because we really have to respect the timing. Tomorrow morning, as you know, we're going to be together with the Holy Father to hand over a copy of the charter, the Solfagnano Charter that's been signed. I'm going to quote a sentence that Sarah Minkara said this morning. I don't know whether everybody picked up on this, but Sarah is the special advisor from the United States of America, and at a certain point she said that with this ministerial, people have taken us seriously. Is that right, Sarah? Those were Sarah's words, and I agree completely. We have to do these great things to draw people's attention and focus on what we're doing and our commitment on inclusion, and not just us, but people with disabilities, their families, within the associations. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank IDA, the International Disability Alliance, the European Disability Forum as well, for having taken part in the work to draft this document. I'm really satisfied with the work we did yesterday with some really outstanding speakers and experts who came from the world over, who looked in greater depth into the priorities and also took sometimes a critical look, but also a very constructive look at the issues we were debating. Now, in the conclusion of the Charter, we looked at 8 themes, 8 priorities, which also look at other aspects of everyday life. And it doesn't stop there, because we want to mark a point from which there is no return. And I thank the next G7 Presidency, Canada and Kamal Kera, who will be moving these issues even further forward, but also the minister from South Africa, Sindisiwe Chakungo, who stated that South Africa will commit also so that they can have a special forum at ministerial level under the next G20. Now, certainly there are many challenges before us. if we're to improve the lives of people with disabilities in our countries. But I do believe that today we have built up our energy stores from these days of work, and we really have had this mutual exchange, not only of a commitment, but also the desire to continue working of a team, to show that if you really want something, you can get there. I think that is the most important message that we have to put out there. Obviously, I don't have much time before I give the floor over to my colleagues, and I would just like to use that time to say once again thank you to the Umbria region, this area, for the support, the Solfagnano Castle, all the volunteers who have been truly the beating heart behind these 3 days of commitment, because it was, in order to share this with everybody, we needed the support of everyone as well. So everyone did their own small bit and really helped shape what we have. Also the people who are involved here in the castle with the catering, the reception, in the square in Assisi, the orchestra, people who were receiving the persons with disability who were arriving in a beautiful place but not easy to get to. So we like challenges. We did it. We did it, and it's really something exceptional. And with that, I would like to hand over to my colleagues for their statements, because this is a really important moment in time. And I think there are very certain specific steps which need to be worked through then now for the Solfagnano Charter. And I give the floor to the Minister from Canada.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. So wonderful to be here. And let me begin by expressing my heartfelt gratitude to the Italian presidency, particularly Minister Locatelli, for your exceptional leadership, hospitality, and providing an opportunity for all of us to come together, to learn, to challenge each other, and to be bold. I think it's a very significant moment in history, and I just want to take an opportunity to really thank Minister for your leadership in making this happen. I also want to take a moment to extend my enormous appreciation to the experts, civil society members, persons with disabilities themselves that have been at the center of the conversations, the ideas that we have been putting forward, and been engaging with the community to move forward on disability inclusion. I want to give a shout out to 4 remarkable Canadians from the Canadian delegation that were here for their expertise, particularly Maureen Hahn, Leonard Baker, Mayan Ziv, and Dr. Jara Tavarias. You know, every day these incredible trailblazers in Canada do incredible work to move the disability inclusion agenda forward, and I know their expertise were really important in making sure that those voices are at the national level. You know, last few days represented an opportunity to demonstrate how we are advancing our collective commitments to make inclusion a priority in all of our nations. It was also an opportunity to challenge ourselves about how to further advance the rights of persons with disabilities through targeted interventions that are focused on removing barriers. You know, removing barriers is not only for those of us with accessibility and inclusion in our titles. I think we need to make sure we take a holistic approach and make sure that all of our colleagues are working to make sure disability inclusion is at the center and forefront of everything that we're doing as governments. You know, Canada has a long-standing commitment to equality, inclusion, and protecting and promoting the rights of persons with disabilities. We take a human rights-based approach that is grounded in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that is really rooted in the true spirit of nothing without us. Canada fully supports the adoption of the Solfagnano Charter, the 8 priorities that were identified. As governments, as leaders, we have a vital role to play. Together, we can continue to build a more inclusive world where everyone can fully and meaningfully participate. And I'll end with this, because it's something that I fundamentally believe in, is that diversity is a fact. We know that. But inclusion is a choice. And when we make that deliberate choice to include people, the world wins. So thank you, merci, grazie, for the leadership that Minister Locatelli, you have showcased. We have important work to do ahead, and I look forward to continue to do that work together. Merci.
you. Grazie. E passo la...
Thank you. And I'll now give the floor to the Minister from the United Kingdom, Mr. Timms.
Minister, thank you very much, and let me also express my thanks to the Italian presidency and specifically to you, Minister Locatelli, for this great opportunity that you've given to all of us to come together, bringing us in this very beautiful place for a very fruitful 3 days of discussion, and I very much welcome the agreement that we've signed this morning. We had a very good discussion yesterday about assistive technology and the potential of artificial intelligence. And it struck me that that's a very good example of a subject where we all need to be working closely together, where there is clearly great potential to remove barriers facing disabled people at the moment, to improve the lives of disabled people. And we heard examples yesterday of where quite modest amounts of government investment from our government and other governments was leveraging in a much larger amount in private investment to deliver technology and solutions that can transform the lives of disabled people. And that's a very clear area where working together is so important. The agreement, the charter that we've signed also highlights the importance of work inclusion, which is going to be a big focus for our work in the UK over the next few months. And it highlights as well the importance of disabled people being able to be physically active. And we've all been reminded of that, particularly, I think, by the great success of the Paralympic Games in Paris just a couple of months ago, which I paid a very enjoyable visit to. So there is a great deal for us to work together on, and thank you very much indeed, Minister, for giving us this opportunity. And I hope we're going to be able to build on this important milestone, maintaining our cooperation and achieving more and more in order to remove the barriers that too often have faced disabled people up till now. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. Passo la parola al Ministro della Francia.
And now the floor goes to Mrs. Parmentier-Lecoq, the Minister from France.
Beaucoup. Merci.
Thank you, Madam Minister, dear Alessandra. I will obviously thank, first and foremost, very, very warmly the Italian government, and in particular the Minister, Alessandra Locatelli, for having made this clear political choice by deciding to establish this first G7 on the inclusion of persons with disabilities. I would also like to very warmly thank all those people who have helped to organize the work here, the welcome that was extended to us, and also the wealth of the debates we've had, the work which went in upstream of the Charter, and then, of course, all of the work that's been put on over the last 2 days, the exchange of good practices between our countries as well. I think that as ministers, this gives us all strength to continue to act once we go back home. The very strong message, I believe, that we are sending out today is that persons with disabilities have a full and complete place in our society. They should enjoy the same rights as citizens. They should have full access to all of those rights. It's not only about taking care of people, but also of considering the value of each individual, their contribution, each and every one of them, to our society. That's a very strong message. And it's also reflected in the objectives we have set together in the Charter. I was appointed very, very recently as Minister Delegate for inclusion and disability in France just 2 weeks ago, in fact. But I think really this has been great for me because I'm going to take this as the basis for the work that I am going to continue now in France. And that fits in perfectly with the strategies and the provisions which we are implementing in France. We still have a long way to go, but I believe that all of us together, we have built up our energy stocks and we have a clearer vision about the path we have to continue to follow. Looking forward, I think that this initiative taken by Italy to establish this G7 on inclusion and disability can be repeated in future G7s, and it should also be a possibility to monitor the implementation of the commitments we have all entered into, to maybe discuss any difficulties which have cropped up, but also the solutions which our different countries have come up with to achieve their objectives. In any case, thank you so much for this energy which I think will be very useful to us, because it's been said very often that we still have to convince people back at home to get our other minister colleagues on board, because the question of inclusion isn't only for the ministers responsible for these issues, but for the entire government. And this G7, I think, gives us the strength, gives us the enlightenment we need in order to get our colleagues on board as well. So thank you to Italy, and thank you to you, Alessandra.
Passo la parola.
I now wish to give the floor to the Minister from the USA, Sarah Mankara.
Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so before I get to my thank yous, because I do have a lot of thank yous, I want to frame the conversation why we need to thank Minister Locatelli and the team and everyone, okay? I'm going to frame it. So there's 3 common narratives globally in the world when it comes to disability. The first narrative, we are always called the vulnerable population. We're not vulnerable because we're disabled, we're vulnerable because the system is not made accessible and does not think of us. Let's make that clear. Vulnerability does not come from our disability. Vulnerability comes from the fact that a society and system is not accessible and inclusive of us. Then that takes us to the second narrative, which is, okay, you want us to think about making things better? A lot of times society turns to the person with a disability and it says, let me fix you instead of fixing the system. One time I was talking to a leader of the country and they turned to me and they said, Sada, my dream someday is for you not to be blind. And I turned to that person, I was like, well, someday, my dream is for someday you create a world where I can exist with no barriers as a blind person. That's a clear distinction. Fix the system, make it accessible for everyone so I can exist as who I am with my disability. The third narrative is, okay, you want us to fix a system? That's costly. It's too expensive, it's a burden, it's an add-on, it's an afterthought. And I will say, well, actually, it's a greater cost on society when you don't include us. It will impact your GDP up to 7%. It will not allow you to tap into our innovation and ideas and contribution and value. You need to bring us to the table. But these are the 3 common narratives that really drive a lot of how the world thinks of us and how policymakers think of us. But this is why this G7 Disability Ministerial Meeting is super important, because it really is bringing forward to the political level that you cannot achieve global peace, prosperity, and security if you don't bring the 16% of the world's population, the 1.3 billion individuals in this world with a population. So there we go. A huge thanks to Minister Locatelli and her team, Pierluigi, Maya, and Vanessa, and so many others. A huge thanks to Hannah Nasri and my colleagues, Hannah Nasri, Ender Sidiye, Megan Kolahasi, Laura, William from the U.S. Embassy, and I want a huge thanks to my delegation, Assistant Secretary Taryn Williams from the Department of Labor, Virginia Atkinson from IFAS, International Foundation for Electoral Systems, Mary Davis, CEO of Special Olympics, Michael Stein, the Harvard Law professor, the founder and executive director of Harvard Project on Disability. My delegation, my team are amazing forces when it comes to bringing this topic to the table. Huge thanks to everyone in this room, but let's really talk seriously here. Disability inclusion is not a switch of a button and it's not a technical solution. It's adaptive work, it's difficult work. So we need to have the difficult conversation. We need to create shared responsibility that everyone takes it forward, including every single person in this room, including the media, take it forward. You need to think about who else needs to come to the table and to the room, and we need to build capacity so we can continue this work forward. So let's ensure that this G7 goes on for the many years to come, G20. I'm so excited for the adoption of this Solfagnano Charter. Can we all give a round of applause for this huge accomplishment? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Passo la parola.
I now wish to give the floor to the Japanese minister. My name is Junko Mihara, and I am Minister in charge of policies for persons with disabilities. First of all, I want to thank Minister Locatelli and the Italian government for their leadership in organizing this conference. I am also very pleased that having had the opportunity to meet all participants. On the 1st of October in Japan, the new presidency of the council was established. And last year, the Paralympic Tokyo 2020 Games were held. On that occasion, almost 95% of the facilities were provided with structures without barriers. Now, next year, we will have additional games that will provide a great opportunity, and I hope that many of you will be able to come to Japan to attend these events, and that the whole world can see Japan's commitment towards creating facilities that are open to all. The charter that we've signed today underscores the fact that everyone has the right to take part in all aspects of life, as social, economic, cultural, educational, and this is absolutely in keeping with Japan's policy for people with disabilities. It should be stated that this charter is an effort of a joint effort to step up further the cooperation among G7 countries. Based on this, we will promote initiatives in our countries, and we will make headway together with you in order to promote an inclusive future. Thank you for listening.
Grazie. Passo la parola al commissario dell'Unione Europea, Elena Dalli.
Thank you. And now the floor goes to Helena Dalli.
Grazie, buongiorno e ringrazio la Presidente.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and I'd like to thank the Italian G7 Presidency, and in particular Minister Locatelli, for having organized for the first time in the history of the G7 a ministerial which is totally dedicated to the question of disability. In the EU, more than 1 adult in 4 has a disability, for a total of 100 million people. About a third of these citizens are at risk of poverty or social exclusion, compared with 18% of persons without a disability. Almost a half of them are inactive or unemployed. It is our duty to work at all levels to guarantee their full participation in society with the same opportunities as are provided for other citizens. We must commit to fully implement the UN Convention and also the EU strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities. The UN Convention offers a mechanism. It's a unique mechanism for promoting global cooperation on this issue, and it identifies the sectors for joint initiatives. It sets specific objectives and guidance, which is now reflected in the Solfagnano Charter, which we have adopted today. I am very pleased that the European Union has been able to feed in to this charter. Here in Solfagnano, we presented our legislation and our policies in the accessibility sector and inclusion in the labor market, as well as on the question of freedom of circulation. The new European Disability Charter is the European approach to this and will ensure people with disabilities moving around the EU that they will have access to the same benefits in the use of certain services and parking places. We have guidance and support instruments and specific measures which will support the participation of persons with disability in the labor market. And this remains an essential issue to guarantee autonomy and dignity for persons with disabilities. Over these 2 days, we've also talked about how we can render humanitarian assistance and civil protection accessible and inclusive. Our debates will feed into our thinking about the future of European policy in this sector. I am sure that our ongoing multilateral cooperation will strengthen the achievement of the rights of persons with disability at global level. As we've said over these days, diversity is a fact. Inclusion is a choice. Let's choose inclusion. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. I would now like to give the floor to Mrs. Chikunga, Minister of South Africa.
Thank you very much, Minister Locatelli. My name is Sindisiwe Chikunga. I'm Minister in the Presidency, responsible for women, youth, and persons with disabilities in South Africa. First and foremost, South Africa really appreciates Honorable Minister Locatelli for extending her hand and inviting non-G7 member states such as South Africa, Kenya, Tunisia, to participate in the meeting on disability inclusion. It is clear from its preparation and execution all the way to the Solfagnano Charter that has just been adopted today, that the inclusion has been deeply embedded into every aspect of this meeting of the ministers of G7 member states. The thematic panels we participated in yesterday were instructive, informative, carefully and scientifically selected to deal with known and emerging trends in disability inclusion movement. We're taking away a number of lessons from this meeting. Artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, we actually have learned that they are neither inherently good nor inherently bad. It is how we deploy them that matters the most. Care, compassion, and inclusion must be at the center and not an afterthought. We also have learned that language is power. It depends on how we frame our inclusion agenda, which is just as important as its implementation. We also have learned a lot about issues related to climate change and how they affect persons with disabilities. We are drawing significant lessons from Italy's National Observatory on the conditions of persons with disabilities. Once we have adopted policies, it is important that we monitor their implementation closely. For us, the essence of this high-level G7 ministerial meeting that has adopted the Charter is fundamentally about the institutionalization and mainstreaming of the interests and full participation of persons living with disabilities in all areas where decisions are made and power is exercised. Finally, as Minister Locatelli has indicated, South Africa, as it assumes the G20 presidency later this year, we will be establishing a G20 Disability Inclusion Forum at G20 ministerial level. South Africa welcomes and supports the Solfagnano Charter, even if we are not a G7 member state. We thank and congratulate the government, the people of Italy, but in particular Minister Locatelli, for this exceptionally organized and a successful meeting. We thank you. Merci. Obrigado.
Grazie.
Thank you. And to conclude, before giving you the floor, I would like to thank the Italian associations. Yesterday, they took part in the preparatory day, the panels, almost the entire observatory, national observatory of for persons with disabilities, and many, or rather the two presidents of the federations, Mr. Pagano for fun and Palagesa for fish, they both spoke, as well as the coordinator of the observatory, Professor Corti. As I said to my colleagues, I will propose to the observatory, to the Technical and Scientific Committee, that they include official reference to the Solfagnano Charter in the next action plan on disabilities, which is being drafted and will be signed by the President of the Republic. And finally, I would like to tell you that, as you've understood, I'm sure they have contributed towards making these 3 days extraordinary. And I'm talking about many associations. I'm not going to go through the whole list, of course. If you are interested, my offices and my press office, Mrs. Sartoriello, will provide you with a list of associations who participated. It's really important that you know who they were, the partners, the institutional partners, and those who were involved in many aspects of our work. And to conclude, we need to remember that we really need to tap into the talents and skills and capabilities of all people and give people a chance. So we were given a chance, and we were given an opportunity, made the best possible use of it. I believe that anybody, if given the opportunity to do something, they will do a great deal. This scarf was created with the contribution of young disabled people. I would like to ask everybody, and especially the press, sometimes to consider the extraordinary projects and work that our third sector, that people with disabilities, families do in our territory. It's true that dramatic events make the headlines, or very wonderful things make the headlines, but there's something extraordinary in between, and that is people who, with their skills, can really do something more for our communities and make our country stronger. Thank you.
Lasciando liberi I miei colleghi.
I would like to let my colleagues go. If you have any questions, I will take them. I know that some have to leave, and we also have lunch waiting for us, right? Today, the minister's lunch will be pizza, beer, and ice cream. Beer and ice cream, that's it. So.
My phone. Okay, I sent you a WhatsApp. Yes. Vieni qua, lo facciamo singolarmente se volete.
We can do this one-on-one if you like. If you have any questions, just please step up here because we can let everybody else go.
Che in questi 3 giorni ne abbiamo fatte tante di interviste.
We've given so many interviews these past 2 days, 3 days.
Grazie, grazie, che meraviglia, grazie, grazie, grazie. Bellissima la sala del meeting, bellissima. Ma forse posso parlare senza microfono adesso, no? Cattiveria. Che cattiveria. Ascolta, mettiti di qua perché sennò loro non vedono. Perfetto. Ok. Qualcuno vuole venire qua vicino a me? Se qualcuno vuole venire vicino non c'è problema, eh? Volete che mi alzi? Mi alzo in piedi? Così? È meglio? Ok, accomodamento ragionevole. Ma va bene anche, cioè come... È solo la telecamera dietro, ma se io sto in piedi va bene così. Così va bene? Ognuno, siete a posto? Di qua siete a posto? Ok, chi fa la domanda? Paolo.
Due cose. La prima è più di colore ma più emotiva. La seconda è resistenziale. Quella più emotiva, quanto ha contratto un po' il protocollo. Quindi aprire alla piazza, gli abbracci, la presenza dell'associazione dei ragazzi che hanno servito ieri.
Certo.
La seconda invece più sostanziale, come ha ricordato sia il ministro Tirsi che il ministro del segretario degli Stati Uniti, il tema dei finanziamenti. Anche ieri Pancalli ha detto che quando parliamo soltanto di finanziamenti in termini di aiuti,
certo.
non capiamo l'importanza di investire nella sanità, ma esiste la possibilità, ci sono questi finanziamenti, oppure ancora è un nodo irrisolto.
Beh, insomma, rompere gli... Si sente, no? Facciamo così. Ma perché sono appiccicati. Ecco, si sente. Beh, rompere gli schemi è una cosa che secondo me è necessaria nel nostro caso, perché il tema della disabilità e dell'inclusione qualche volta viene sottovalutato, no? Viene trattato in secondo piano. Quindi abbiamo...
We need to show that we're there above and beyond protocols and red tape and documents. So this was the message that we wanted to put across on the 14th with the celebration on the square that featured the participation of